There's a feature within the Android build tools which can be extremely useful in vector drawables. Inline complex XML resources. That's quite a long name for quite a straightforward concept, but it's a mechanism for embedding one XML resource inside another. To demonstrate how this works, using concepts which should be familiar to most Android developers, let's take a look at a simple layout. Here we have a constraint layout containing two views, each of which has the background set to a shape drawable, which is defined in a separate XML file. Inline complex XML resources are a way of embedding a drawable resource directly within the layout file. This work is done by a build tool named Android Asset Packaging Tool, or AAPT for short, which is responsible for compiling and packaging the app's resources at build time. To make use of the inlining feature, we need to declare the AAPT namespace. Next, we remove the background attribute from one of the views, as we're going to replace it with an inline drawable. Now we add a child element within the view, which will define an attribute. In this case, we define an attribute from the Android namespace named background, which is the attribute that we just removed. Within this, we can add a custom shape drawable, which is very similar to the drawable we used previously, but with a few differences. As we add each of the components to the shape drawable, we can see the preview in the right-hand panel updating almost in real time. One thing that we don't have yet is autocomplete within Android Studio when adding inline resources, so it does make this a little slower than if we were to define them in a separate file. Often it may be easier to define them initially as a separate file in order to get the benefit of autocomplete and then copy and paste them inline. At build time, AAPT will strip this inline resource out into its own file, and so the resulting APK will be pretty much the same as if we had created the shape drawable in a separate file. The advantage of using this technique is that it helps us to keep the related code together by inlining it. However, this does come at a potential cost. If we use an identical inline resource for both of the views, and then take a look at the resulting APK, we can see that the inline resources have indeed been separated out, but despite the fact that they are identical, two new drawables are created, and these are also identical. So if we overuse this technique, we can bloat the APK. However, when we know that there is unlikely to be completely identical inline resources, this technique can keep our XML resources much easier to understand and maintain, and this can have specific benefits to some aspects of vector drawables.